folks. This is Abel James, and thanks so much for listening to the Fat Burning Man Show, where we talk about real food and real results. Today is a very special show with a real-life gluten-free success story, Miss Alyson Bridge, who's an amazing cook and author of the just-released 50 Wholesome Gluten-Free Desserts e-cookbook. So you listeners have asked for special episodes with real folks who have experienced results in fat loss and improvements in health. And after the overwhelming positive feedback when I had my mom, Angie Bascom, on the show, I decided you folks might enjoy listening to the lady behind the Fat Burning Man. So Alyson is my girlfriend and the proud co-pilot of the camper van. As you may know, we've spent the last 4 months on the road going on adventures around the country with our dog, Bailey, of Paleo puppy fame. And we've been home for 3 days in Austin, Texas, and it's so nice to be here and sitting at my desk. It's been a wild ride. One of the interesting things, though, is that even though we were preparing meals literally in a van, other people's houses, or often while barreling down the highway at 60 miles an hour, it doesn't go real fast, we ate extremely well the whole way. We visited local organic farms, including my brother's farm in New Hampshire, and natural grocery stores along our travels, gathering fresh fruits and veggies and delicious pastured meats and seafood. We picked wild blueberries, huckleberries, and cranberries in New Hampshire, traveled to Maine to eat lobster straight from the sea, savored grass-fed beef and wild boar in Colorado, and ate fresh organic grapefruit straight from the orchard in Arizona. And so one of the most exciting things is that while at my parents' place in New Hampshire, thanks again, Mom and Dad, Alyson and I commandeered the kitchen and whipped up over 35 desserts in order to snap pictures in time to get the new cookbook to you, which is 50 Wholesome Gluten-Free Desserts. And when you buy it in the next few weeks to cook for Thanksgiving and the holidays, you get $10 off, so it's only $9.95, and you can grab it right at fatburningman.com and check out the show notes there. Alyson and I definitely spend a lot of time in the kitchen, and I've tried pretty much every single one of the recipes in this book, and some of them she even stole from me. And I can vouch that they are absolutely delicious, and it's the stuff I eat pretty much on a daily basis when I'm looking for a tasty treat that's not going to give me a huge belly or gluten bloat, as we like to call it. So check out the show notes at fatburningman.com to take a look at the gluten-free desserts e-cookbook. All right, on to the show. In today's show, Alyson and I discuss how she went from exercising hours a day to minutes a week and actually lost fat. How she cured flaky skin, lost weight, healed stretch marks, and stopped getting cavities by going gluten-free. Why you should stop counting calories and start eating lots of fat. And why women shouldn't be afraid of weights. All right, on to the show. All right, folks, today we're here with a real-life success story and the author of 50 Wholesome Gluten-Free Desserts, Miss Alyson Bridge. How's it going, Alyson?
It's going very well.
Awesome. So I'm certainly familiar with your background, but for the sake of the folks out there, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm the youngest of 7 children. I have 5 older brothers and an older sister. I got picked on a lot.
Yeah.
And so when I was little, I'd help around the house a lot and help with cooking. And later when I went to college, I took a gourmet cooking class, and that just really set me on fire for cooking. I love to cook.
So as a cook, have you always been health conscious?
Oh, certainly not. We definitely had Hot Pockets around the house and ramen noodles for a long time. I would say it wasn't until probably 3 years ago that I really got interested in what I'm putting in my body is affecting what my body looks like on the outside, and I'm sure the inside. And like I started having problems with my body, and so it was just another like me reaching out instead of just taking a multivitamin and vitamin C and all of these, trying to fix it with like supplements. I started exploring why and how food affected me.
Yeah. And so what sorts of effects, negative health effects, were you feeling at the time?
I always had pretty bad acne, and I was surprised when I was 22 and I was still having acne and really large pores and a flaky scalp, and I'd had some weight issues. And I tried everything. I tried like dozens, probably hundreds of facial products, and even like really painful laser therapy on my face. It's ridiculous, the things that we do to try and look good. It didn't work. All the things I was reading on the internet and on TV about how to fix myself, they're just trying to sell you something, and it didn't work. And maybe a little bit for a day, but when I tried eating like good foods, that's what really made a difference. Like there's lots of improvements besides just those. Like I've had stretch marks in my legs that I had from being a teenager, and my mom said it was just from growing that I got stretch marks, and I didn't expect that to get better. I thought that was something that just once you get stretch marks, you always have stretch marks, but all of a sudden, it's just like they're almost completely gone. The puffiness in my face, I started getting this line down the middle of my cheek, and I thought that was just something that my body, like that's just how it looks, but that went away. I stopped getting cold sores. I got terrible cold sores when I was 5. I remember I had like 23 all over my mouth. It was so gross. And I would get them at least, 3 a year. And since I changed my diet, especially removing gluten, all of a sudden I stopped getting cold sores. And I don't get cavities anymore. The dentist, I go in there and usually it's like 10 cavities and I'm like, oh, I'm screwed. My family just has terrible teeth. And now it's like, I don't get cavities.
That's pretty awesome. So what's changed in your diet? What did it look like a typical meal back then compared to a typical meal now?
It was like a sandwich and some chips, like a turkey sandwich or peanut butter and jelly, and maybe oatmeal for breakfast. I ate cereal, and I would stay with Chex and Kix, and lunch, pizza, hamburger. So, and like now, if I have a hamburger, I just won't eat the bun.
Right.
Or I'll wrap it in lettuce. We make flax pizza or pizza instead of pizza.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love pizza. Now it's like salads and meats and nuts and fruit, and I don't eat any bread or filler or oatmeal really. Gluten-free oats some.
So like a lot of people say, don't you miss all the bread and the carbs?
I don't. Oh my gosh, I find substitutes. If there's anything that I feel like I'm not getting or like I'm craving and I can't have it, I'll find a way. I'll make it out of something. I'll find some like ground almond flour is amazing. You can do so much with it. Mm-hmm. I can make pizza. I made sourdough bread out of almond flour.
And quinoa too, right?
Yeah, there was spelt and quinoa and a few other kinds, but had almonds in there.
Yeah, and it was pretty rockin' sourdough too.
Yeah.
So do you ever cheat now and eat gluten? And what happens if you do?
Oh, so when we were at the wedding a month ago, there was this apple crisp, and it looked so good. Everyone's lined up on the table getting the desserts, like when it's cake time, and that apple crisp just had my name all over it. Yeah. I thought, you know what? If it looks that good, it can't be bad for me. So I ate a whole piece. It was a pretty big piece.
And a cream puff.
It was like an hour later where my stomach just started like hurting and turning in circles. And the next day, I felt all swollen and my face was kind of puffy. And I was like, oh, it's just in my head. I'm not puffy. That's ridiculous. And then you took a picture and I was looking at it. And definitely, I think I deleted that one from Facebook. So this is just like not flattering. I went from thin to fat in one day from eating gluten.
Yeah, this is pretty amazing. You weren't the only one who experienced some positive results from cutting out gluten. Your parents have kind of changed their diet around too, and some other people in your family. So why don't you talk a little bit about that and how their experience has changed?
Yeah, I haven't really talked to my dad too much, but last time I was visiting, he was eating candy bars for breakfast. And I was like, Dad, what are you doing? Here, drink this smoothie. And I don't know if...
But they had peanuts in them.
Yeah, was it a payday? I don't know if it's from his doctor's advice or he just feels like he's not feeling good. But since I've been there now, he's on all vegetables and meat, and he's lost a bunch of weight. And he says he's like feels really good. He was bragging. He like opened the freezer and he was like, "Look, Alyson!" And he pulls out this bag of meat and this bag of vegetables, and he's showing it off. And my sister, she went to the doctor and had some testing done, and on her and her children, and it said that they're all can't tolerate gluten. So they cut out gluten and all these other things that they're allergic to, and she's lost 20 pounds.
Wow.
And in a short amount of time, and she says she's more energy, and they all look great. So, and I think, and my mom, she doesn't eat gluten, and she's hot. My mom's hot.
She is. I'll go out and say that.
I'm gonna tell her you said that.
I'm sure she's listening anyway. Now, you mentioned cutting out sugar as well. So why would you do that, number one, and what do you use instead?
Yeah, so I don't have sugar in any of my desserts, although you can consider, I use some like maple syrup and honey, and you can consider that sugar because it acts the same in your body to some extent, maybe less so than cane sugar, and it's not GMO like beet sugar. Mm-hmm. But my favorite sweetener is xylitol. And I also like stevia, honey maple syrup, and also coconut palm sugar. But xylitol is the freaking bomb. Oh my gosh.
So what's so good about it? Tell the folks out there.
Yeah, so it's easy to use in any recipe because you can just sub it 1-for-1 for sugar, and it doesn't spike your blood sugar at all like cane sugar does. So when you eat something with xylitol, you're much less likely to store that food as fat in your body. And it's good for your teeth, and it like helps prevent plaque forming on your enamel, and it's supposed to be good for fighting off like bacteria growth, in addition to tasting like really similar to sugar. I should be a xylitol salesperson.
Yeah, xylitol is pretty awesome, and it doesn't have, when you overdo it with stevia, it has that really bitter flavor in your mouth. But coconut palm sugar is really good too. You use it quite a bit. Why do you like that one?
I love coconut palm sugar. It tastes like brown sugar.
Yeah.
And I think it's even tastier than regular sugar. And it's tastier than xylitol, but it does raise your blood sugar some, mm-hmm. but it's on the lower glycemic index. Didn't you have a friend that tried to sub stevia in a recipe for the same amount of sugar that it called for?
Yeah, one person who was trying one of my recipes used stevia 1-to-1 with sugar. And if any of you folks out there have ever tried anything close to that, you know that is a bad idea. It's something like 200 times the strength of sugar, so it's just like a punch in the face if you ever overdo it. I remember the first time that I had stevia, I was at a coffee shop, and I just put a little bit in. I think it was half the packet, and the coffee was undrinkable. It was absolutely disgusting. So stevia, I think it's great in small amounts, but when you overdo it, you know it pretty quick.
Yeah, it's good in like smoothies.
Yeah, it's perfect. Perfect in smoothies. So why don't we talk a little bit about how your lifestyle has changed as well, because you used to strap yourself to a treadmill for 2 hours a day, right?
I went through this period where I was trying to get really in shape. So the way that I did that is I worked out 3 times a day. In the morning, I'd run on the treadmill for an hour. At lunchtime, I'd actually go home from work and run on the treadmill and do like lunges. And then after work, I would run on the treadmill for an hour, which is ridiculous. I felt skinnier, but not in all the way. Like I still had skin, and I looked a little peaked, I think. Mm-hmm. Like looking back at photos now. And the way I work out now is, which you've taught me, is I just sprint, do some sprints, and then mostly it's just like weights. So I'll throw the kettlebell, swing it around. Hand weights are my favorite, and I just work my way up. So right now I can do like curls with 25 pounds, and then deadlifts with 25 to 35. And I'll go around, like every once in a while I'll go to the gym and just work my way around on all their machines and go to the highest weights that I can do on each one and do like 3 to 6 reps. And my body shape is changing. Like I have more muscle tone in my arms. And I can't imagine, I used to be afraid of weights. I would look at those monster women bodybuilders and I would think, oh, I'll never lift weights because I don't want to look like that.
Yeah.
Which is the most absurd.
It's ridiculous.
Absurd thinking. I don't know where that comes from. I'm probably not the only one, but it's like lifting weights, the heavier and heavier that I go, I can't imagine my body ever getting like bulky.
Yeah.
It just gets more shapy.
More shapy. I like that.
Yeah.
So you went from exercising hours a day to minutes a week.
Yeah. So I exercise probably, I want to say it's every other day, but it's probably not even that. It's probably like twice a week, 3 times if I'm being excellent. Sometimes only 1 time.
Yeah.
And if we're on the road, maybe not even that.
Yeah.
But if I just go hard that one day and I feel awesome, and it's it like holds me over the whole week almost.
So talk about your body composition. How is your body better or worse now compared to doing lots and lots of cardio and stepping up the weights?
Even when I was doing cardio, I felt like they were, in comparison to now, my thighs were thicker, which doesn't make sense because I was running so much. My butt was flatter, and I still had those like little things underneath your muscles of your arms. I think people have a name for those.
I don't dare mention it on air.
So now my thighs have gotten a lot thinner and more muscly. It's like there's just muscle everywhere, which gives it this nice shape. I like how my shoulders like bulge out. I kind of think of the girl on Lost. I don't know what her name is, but she's got incredible arms. And so I always think about her arms when I'm lifting weights.
That's cute. I've never thought about that before.
Yeah, and my tummy is so much like flat, whereas it used to, even when I was running a lot, have this like little squishy, bulgy pooch. Yeah. I don't like that. But yeah, it's flat, and sometimes if I'm on a certain time of the month, or if I just go crazy, some of those things come back a little bit, but it's not a big deal, and it goes away easily when I work out.
So many people, when I tell them that intensity is the key to exercise, not duration, they act with some resistance, no pun intended to that. But with you, what would you say to some of the women out there who aren't taking it seriously and are still just on the treadmill way too much? What would you say to try to transition them over to more effective exercise?
I would say don't be afraid of weights, and give it a shot. Like, go a month and don't run at all. Or if you do, give it all you've got for 30 seconds. Just like run as hard as you can and then stop, and then run as hard as you can and then stop. But don't do the like sort of jogging along, because it's not really doing much for you. Like, you're getting that same exercise by walking around all day, because it's not really challenging your body. Mm-hmm. But when you hit the weights hard, and you don't have to do it for very long, it just makes such a huge difference. And like, even after the first one, you can feel this strength in your body that's makes you feel like you can do anything. It's such a like power rush.
Yeah.
I feel like I can just charge at the world, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna go bite off a saber-toothed tiger's head. Okay, I don't think I can bite off a tiger's head.
Well, speaking of saber-toothed tigers, you tried paleo a few years ago, but you didn't really stick with it. So why didn't it work for you then, or what sort of effects did you experience when you first tried it?
One of the things I would do at work is I would go to the kitchen and I would get like a bowl of cereal and I'd eat that at my desk. So I was paleo in the morning and I was paleo in the evening for the most part. But then during the day I would have cereal, and then over time it gradually got more and more relaxed, where I was eating, yogurt and oatmeal. And then we would go out to lunch during the middle of the day, and I'd get a cheeseburger, and I would just think, well, this one, just the bun on this isn't going to really do anything. But it wasn't until I completely eliminated all grains and carbs that I noticed a huge impact. And then I would introduce like better grains back into my diet. So brown rice flour in moderation, trying to eat it in the morning, and some quinoa and gluten-free oats. Mm-hmm. Those didn't really bother me, and it's like a good treat.
Yeah. And do you count calories?
No. I used to count calories. It became like very obsessive about it. But now I don't at all. I eat probably a lot of calories. Maybe, and some days I probably don't eat much at all. It's just like I just listen to my body. So in the morning, if I'm not hungry, I won't eat until sometimes 11 or 12. But if I am hungry, sometimes I'll eat right when I wake up.
Yeah.
And some days I'll eat a lot of hamburger and tons of meat, and I'll eat like brown rice cookies, and I'll just like eat a ton of food. And I don't know what it is. My body's just like, you want all of it, and I'll eat all of it. And yeah, so I think really just listening to my body and balancing it out with how my body feels, and eating when I'm hungry, not eating when I'm not hungry.
And what about fat? Do you count that?
I count it as yummy. I eat so much fat. This morning I had bacon, and then I cooked sweet potatoes, Japanese sweet potatoes in bacon fat, and I had eggs cooked in butter. I eat so much fat. Oh, it's so good. And I realized the reason I loved ramen when I was a kid was because I would smother it with butter. It wasn't the ramen I liked, it was the butter.
Yeah, that's true with a lot of foods. So what about for the people out there who aren't really converted yet, who are afraid of fat? What would you say to them? It's
when I don't have carbs, and I'm not eating grains, but I do have fat, I feel like I can go longer all day, and feel great, and I have lots of energy. And then whenever I feel like I'm sort of slowing down, it just means I need some more fat, or sweet potatoes, which is carbs, but it's awesome, or some vegetables or something. But fat really, like, it fills me up. For example, pizza. When you eat a slice of pizza, you can eat like 5 more after that one slice.
And most people do.
But pizza, which is a lot of fat and protein, it just fills you up. So you only need 1 slice. And if you eat 2, you're like sweating.
Now, you spend a lot of time in the kitchen, obviously. So a lot of people are just kind of getting started with that. And if you really want to make a lifestyle change, you need to get in the kitchen and learn to navigate your way around making healthy food. So what are some tips for people just getting started?
One thing I would say that I learned is when you are making some of the desserts, like a cheesecake or a cake or a pie, I'll make like a cheesecake, and then it's just a whole cheesecake, and there's only 2 of us. So in the morning I go in there, I look at the fridge, and there's a whole cheesecake, and I'm like, I better have cheesecake for breakfast. Which is, it's good for a treat. But when you have a whole thing, then you're tempted to eat the whole thing. So one thing that's really good to do is just use like a small pan, or if it's just you, if you have a big family, then go to town and make a whole apple pie. But if it's just you, get like ramekins are really good for it too, and just cut the recipe in quarter or an eighth and make a small version of it, or several small versions, and freeze some.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good advice, because I'm certainly known to eat a whole pie in one sitting. That certainly happened before.
On multiple occasions.
Good thing I'm not training for a marathon right now. So what are some of your favorite desserts then?
Oh, rum balls. Rum balls are so good. It's chocolate cake soaked in rum. Oh. I was really happy with the graham cracker recipe, which isn't necessarily a dessert, but it kind of is, and they're really good. The chocolate chip cookie recipe is incredible. Like, I was really wanting chocolate chip cookies for a long time, and I had like told myself I'm not gonna eat white flour anymore, and I'm not gonna have cane sugar anymore, and so I would feel like I was cheating myself if I had that. So I was experimenting, and I made I feel like I was making chocolate chip cookies like every other week, and I couldn't. It was just like it was good, but it wasn't the chocolate chip cookie recipe that I had made homemade before. Mm-hmm. So, but I did it. It's so good.
It is good.
I think that one's my favorite. Rum balls is a close second.
I like the rum balls too. Now, before we go, I did want to talk about probably the weirdest trigger food I've ever heard of for you is the carob covered almond. So,
oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed.
Yeah, why don't you talk a little bit about that? What's the deal?
So, I would go to Whole Foods, and I would get a bag of carob almonds, and I'd get like a pretty hefty sack of these things because it comes in the bulk things, so you can just scoop as much as you want. And I would take it, and this is when I was working, and I would put it next to my desk, and I would just like eat a couple and then keep eating them, and it would be like a few hours, and this whole giant bag that I just bought is gone, and I'd have like this bellyache, and I'm like, why did I do it? I hate that I just did that. But I don't know what it was. It was like the one food of everything that I was eating at the time that I would eat uncontrollably, and I would just I had to tell myself I'm not going to eat it. And it wasn't until like a month ago that I looked up the ingredients of the carob coating that they put on it. It's not just because I love carob from being a kid. It's just like one of my brings back good memories. Mm-hmm. And I looked in the ingredients, and one of the things is soy lecithin. So I'm thinking maybe it's the soy in the carob that's stimulating my appetite, or maybe it's some of the, I think there's a couple other things they put in there that's probably stimulating my appetite instead of being satiated. You think by eating almonds, which are, fatty seeds, and the carob, and that it would be something that would fill me up and not make me want more after eating a few. But I think if there are foods like that make you hungrier, or they don't, like eating a few doesn't do it and you keep wanting to eat them, then it's probably something unnatural and wrong with that, because in nature, food isn't like that. Like when you eat like a carrot or a cucumber, you don't want to eat another cucumber.
I do.
Well, you're different.
So what do you do then when you see carob almonds when you're in Whole Foods, for example?
Well, if I feel like I really need them as a treat, I'll only get 5 in a bag, and that'll be my dessert for this meal. Or I also started to just make my own. So I got carob powder, and I mixed it with xylitol to sweeten it a little bit, and cocoa butter. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure other fats work too, like coconut. Coconut oil would probably be just as good. So I just make my own.
Yeah.
It doesn't have garbage junk in it.
No, that's the best way to do it. So how much of your food that you eat would you say now you cook yourself?
I would say all of it, except I'm sure that's not true. Probably
It's almost all of it.
probably 95%.
Yeah, which is pretty shocking, but you're superbly healthy and you don't really need to exercise that much to keep in great shape because you know what you're eating.
Yeah. And even when I go out to a restaurant, I feel disappointed every time because I'm sitting there and I'm thinking that I don't know what they put in the salad dressing. I don't know how they spice this. Is there MSG? And am I going to feel like such a crazy person if I like hound the waiter about like every ingredient that's in this meal that they just cooked for me? And what am I paying? It's like 10 times the price as if I cooked it myself.
Yeah.
I'm a good cook.
Yes, you definitely are. We had duck the other night. Duck for $3 a plate. You go out and it's easily 10 times that, maybe more, and probably in a sauce that isn't quite as friendly with fats that aren't as good as the ones we would have used at home. So it's definitely it's a shame that there aren't more instances out there to get really high quality food where you know it's in your food. But you can do a few things when you're shopping. Say you're at Whole Foods or at a natural grocery store or, God forbid, the supermarket. What do you do when you pick something off the shelf? Do you look at the nutrition facts?
I don't. It's funny, I never pay attention to them anymore.
Yeah.
Look at the ingredients.
Walk us through looking at a label. What are you looking for when you're looking at the ingredients?
I look for if there's wheat in it, if there's soy in it, any of those hidden MSG
Right.
ingredients. They like disguise it as different things now.
Mm-hmm.
I look for sugar. I look at the sugar content and the nutrition facts. So I want to keep it really low, like 2 grams per serving minimum, or none at all. Usually I just buy like the whole ingredients instead of buying like canned or bagged stuff anyway.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that don't have ingredients.
And GMOs?
Oh yeah, GMOs, beet sugar, corn, soy.
And flavorings.
Anything you can't pronounce.
Yeah, anything you can't pronounce.
Phosphate.
All right, to switch gears a little bit, a lot of you folks out there know that we spent the last, 4 months on the road, or at least uprooted from our place in Austin. And so Alyson and I have both been doing a lot of cooking out of a camper van that has a tiny little stove on it. But Alyson, why don't you walk us through a little bit how you are able to make your own food on the road?
Yeah, so there was a fridge and, like you said, the little stove in the van. So we would cook a lot of times for breakfast, bacon and then cooked eggs in the bacon fat and make a little salad. And for lunch, we'd snack on carrots and almond butter and coconut butter and pull over and make hamburgers. I mean, really, it's like there's a whole little kitchen in there. So we would do everything. We'd cut up onions and garlic and saute vegetables with steak. And we'd stock up. We'd always have eggs and bacon in the fridge and kale. And then we'd always have like grapefruit and fatty stuff. So whenever you start feeling low on energy, I'd go get a spoonful of almond butter and a piece of chocolate. Pound that.
You? Chocolate?
No. And then whenever we were in a certain town, as we're driving around, we'd find a natural grocery store and stop and stock up on anything we were low on and find fun stuff there.
Yeah.
What was your favorite like meals that we cooked?
I mean, you're always going to get me with bacon and eggs. But I love sheep milk yogurt. That's something that I always just grab right away when I see it at a store. That creaminess on the top, I love spooning that straight into my mouth and just enjoying every second of it. It's awesome. Sometimes I put some macadamia nuts in there with some coconut flakes and some cinnamon, and that totally rocks. And we're also suckers for cappuccinos. Especially when you're driving. We did, 10,000 miles?
I'm going to pound that coffee.
So we had a lot of coffee. And then you also made lots of baked goods, which they would last like a week.
Road trip cookies.
Road trip cookies. And so how did you do that? For people out there, why don't you give them a quick rundown of how you were able to do that?
Well, in the book, there's lots of cookie recipes, but it's just, I just get a tin and I'd make cookies and put them in the fridge in there. But one thing is when we're on the road, and we actually ate all the road trip cookies, and we were out, I went in the back and I made, this is while you were driving, this is like improv cooking in the van. I'd take almond butter, coconut flakes, what else? Macadamia nuts, and I think it was honey.
Yeah, it was a bit of honey.
And I just rolled it into balls, and we would eat those, and they taste just like cookies.
Yeah, they were delicious.
Thank you.
They were really good. They kept me driving for a long time.
It's like road trip power fuel to the max, extreme edition.
So that kind of goes to show you that we're not just stuck in our own little bubble in Austin, going to our comfy Whole Foods all the time, and restaurants that we know, cooks that we know, and all this. We were in the middle of nowhere for a long period of time in totally unpredictable circumstances, and we still managed to eat really well, I would say.
Yeah.
The only meals that we ate out were by choice. We would go to, if we were going to a new city, we would, and it was one that, was somewhat progressive food-wise, then we would look at Yelp to see if they had any cool, well-rated farm-to-table type restaurants. And we found a couple of those and really enjoyed the ones that we ate in, with a couple of exceptions. But for the most part, I think it went really, really well.
Yeah.
But it's good to be home.
Oh, it is. We have a giant fridge. We can put all of our delicious food in.
Yeah.
It makes it seem, too, like, I feel a little bit spoiled now.
Oh, yeah. Because we can cook on more than one burner at a time.
And when you close the front door, the burner thing doesn't fall off.
One of the things when we were cooking in the van is whenever one of us would go out one of the doors and shut the door, there was this mechanism on top of the stove that would be its cover when the van was driving, but it would kind of magnetically go up to the side of the van and stick there while you were cooking, unless someone shut the door, and then it would slam down on the bacon fat or whatever else to spray you in the face or spray all over the floor. It was kind of a disaster. It's a lot easier at home, I would have to say.
There were so many times the pan would get knocked off, like spilled on me. I'm like this like open flame, like trying to singe my hair.
Yeah, I think you covered me with coffee a time or two.
Bailey did it. That dog.
Yeah, one of the other cool things that happened is when we left, Bailey, our dog, was very much a puppy, and now she's a full-grown dog. So that's pretty cool. And we're like I said, thank you so much for bearing with us on the road. It's been important to me to keep bringing shows to you, but certainly a challenge doing it from hotel rooms and other people's houses and even the van in some cases. So thanks so much for bearing with us. I have lots of fun interviews coming up. And Alyson, before we go, why don't you just talk a little bit about the book that we just came out with, the cookbook, and tell people how they can find it.
Yep, it's 50 wholesome gluten-free desserts, and it is like what I've been working on for the past 2 years. I've been obsessing in the kitchen, like the chocolate chip cookie recipe. Mm-hmm. It's been like that times 50, and I have other ones too that didn't make it into the cookbook, but these are all my favorites. So
my favorites too.
Yeah,
you stole a few of mine.
You noticed that. So I'm so happy to be able to share this with you guys, and you can check it out on Abel's blog. There's a link there, and download it, and it's on sale for a week, so grab it.
Right on. Well, Alyson, thank you so much for coming on. We'll have you on the show again soon.
Thank you, Abel. It's been great being here.
once again, thank you so much for listening to the Fat Burning Man Show and for all of your support. I'm going to be booking up a lot of guests now that I'm back in Austin, finally at my desk and not bouncing all over the country. I can finally get myself organized. So if there's anyone that you'd like to hear on the show, please feel free to shoot me an email at abel@fatburningman.com. That's ABEL. And I'll do my best to get them on the show. And if you'd like to check out 50 wholesome gluten-free desserts, the e-cookbook that Alyson and I just put together, you can head on over to fatburningman.com and check out the show notes, and it'll point you right to it. And remember, you save $10 if you order it for the holidays. So if you're anxious to start cooking up the perfect chocolate chip cookie, some apple cider donuts, or my favorite, the pumpkin pie or the rum balls, then head on over to fatburningman.com. Thanks so much for your support. I'll be talking to you guys soon. Cheers.